some of you, this is going to be a bit of a refresher, and for a lot of you, it's new information. But I have been presenting on sexual harassment for corporate America for about the past 10 or 15 years. And I've presented for police, firefighters, first responders, librarians, you name it, across industry, and obviously therapists. So it's important for us to recognize that sexual harassment covers three different categories. The first category is sexual coercion, and that's often called quid pro quo legally. So what does quid pro quo mean? Does anyone know? Yes, this for that. Thank you, Helen. That's exactly right. And so it's you sleep with me, you get the promotion. You don't, you won't. You go out for drinks with me on the weekends, and you get favorable shifts. You don't, and you're going to work the less desirable shifts. So you get the point. The second category is unwanted sexual attention, and this is more common. Quid pro quo is the rarest form of sexual harassment. Unwanted sexual attention is much more common. And according to the US Supreme Court, in order for it to be considered illegal, it must be sufficient, severe, and pervasive in order to qualify for meeting an abusive working environment. However, people can also file civil suits, and they can also file workplace complaints and have ramifications with their employer. So unwanted sexual attention could be everything from, and we're going to go through the verbal and the non-verbal examples of this. It could be everything from, how they're being looked at, to how they're being spoken to actually being physically assaulted or even raped. Which obviously is a criminal offense. The third and absolutely most common form of sexual harassment is gender harassment. And this actually involves no sexual advance. And the reason that it's categorized under sexual harassment is because it's based on the sex of the person. So it doesn't involve sexuality, but it involves comments about sex and gender. So for example, derogatory terms about women, about the LGBTQIA plus population, these would qualify as examples of gender harassment. Many years ago, 20 years ago, I remember going into labor unions to give presentations on mental health in the workplace and drug-free workplace programming. And actually in the cubicles at these unions would be centerfolds hung up on the wall. Well, that is a form of hostile workplace environment. That's sexual harassment because it's inappropriate in the workplace and it's subjecting people to the objectification of women. And so these are examples of the three different forms of sexual harassment. So we've already discussed quid pro quo, is this for that. And the other examples are encompassed in what's called hostile workplace environment. So it doesn't feel like a safe and comfortable place for everyone. So people are feeling uncomfortable, that there's sexual harassment either in the attention or in the sort of the way that women and people are talked about in the workplace. So I also want to make a note that throughout this presentation, I'm talking a lot about men and women, because that's how a lot of the research is framed around sexual harassment. But we also want to recognize, of course, the LGBTQIA plus community and recognize that not everyone identifies as male or female. And this includes non-binary folks as well. So please keep that in mind as I'm referring to men and women, that this is inclusive, and we want to also recognize that not everyone identifies as such. So this is not a recent thing. sexual harassment. This is not something that just came out a few years ago. This is something that has been considered illegal since 1964 as part of the Civil Rights Act. It is also against company policies. Employers have an anti-harassment policy. And when people are employed during their orientation, they typically receive the company's anti-harassment policy, which explains they may have a zero tolerance policy. You know, one event and you're out. So you want to understand that for yourself and for your clients, to remember to look at their anti-harassment policies, which also explain how to file a report. And again, this is illegal. So sexual harassment is illegal. It is a crime. People can serve prison time for it. It is very, very serious, obviously, in addition to losing their job. And sometimes people experience a criminal suit, or they are involved in a lawsuit with their employer, or they are involved in a civil suit. So it can affect people in a variety of different ways. So this is really important content to remember. It's also imperative, some of you were talking about working in universities and working in high schools, or if you're working in a practice where you're working with people who are under 18 years old. When people who are under 18 years old are being sexually harassed, there are statutory rape considerations. So if, let's say, and my husband and I give presentations for lifeguards every year in our community. And the lifeguards in the townships and cities in the Chicago area where we lived tended to be between ages 18 and 24. And a lot of the supervisors were over 18, and a lot of the employees were, even younger than that, anywhere from 16 to 21. And so if a 19-year-old supervisor was dating one of his supervisees and had a sexual relationship, that not only is against company policy, not only is sexual harassment if the person, it was not consensual. And if they're under 18, they can't be consensual because they're not an adult legally. So very, very important to remember that if somebody is under 18 and involved, it can be considered statutory rape, and the person who is sexually harassing can be listed as a sex offender for life. So very, very serious implications that we want to think about for ourselves and how we conduct ourselves in our workplace, and also for our clients and what they experience in the workplace. And again, if you are a supervisor or an owner of a practice, then you're going to want to think about these sort of recommendations for your own workplace.